This is Creedale Jones, son from the music group The Shy Lights. You see me on Fraternity Court Television show. I'm going to explain what the real story is behind my dad, Creedale Jones, and the legacy that he left from the music group The Shy Lights, and why we appeared on the Fraternity Court Television show. I originally contacted uh, the producers of the Fraternity Court Television show, known as the Lauren Lake Fraternity Court Show. Um, the original producer name was Tyler. I contacted her in reference to a lady in which claimed that she was the illegitimate daughter of my dad. After she claimed that she was the illegitimate daughter after the death of my dad, which was around 94. But before that started, the original story behind the Fraternity Court Television appearance started originally with trust fund embezzlement and trust fund and royalty theft from the Shy Lights that my dad left from the music group The Shy Lights. Um, my dad, Creedale Jones, died homeless and destitute in Glendale, California, while married to my mother, Deborah Jones, which was his wife since 1978. I was born in 1976, 2 years before the marriage of my mother and father, Creedale Jones, from the Shy Lights. My dad stayed married to my mother for over 20 years. She was the longest wife he had and the only wife he had during the death of my father, Creedale Jones. And his death really became a issue and really was the result of uh, royalty and trust fund theft done by my father's family and the family of my mother, Deborah Jones, and some of the families that you've seen on the Fraternity Court Television show. Now, this is the story behind that. Around 1980-81, my dad established a trust fund worth about $3.5 million in it for me and my sister Trinell and Tamiko, um, and the half sisters and brothers that you've seen on the Fraternity Court Television show. Prior to that, this money was created and basically gotten from a world tour concert that my dad did with his group, the Shy Lights, and Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 around 1981 or so. 25 to $30 million was collected from the music performing worldwide concert performances from Creedale Jones, my dad Creedale Jones, and his music group, the Shy Lights, around 1981. His portion from the World Tour concert was about 3.5 million to roughly $5 million that he got from that performance. His work with the Shy Lights and um, his appearance with the concerts that the Shy Lights did, which he co-founded during the World Tour concert of 1981. This money was put up in trust funds due to the fact that Brunswick Records, which was the record label of my dad from the Shy Lights, and several other artists, well-known musicians like Jackie Wilson, Barbara Acklin, Louis Armstrong, Tyrone Davis, etc. Um, the investigation that caused Brunswick Records to be under FBI, Federal Bureau of investigation, as well as criminal investigations by the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit, was alleged abuses that they did and allegations pertaining to royalty fraud, artist abuse, physical abuses that was um, stated to have occurred from the owner Nathan Trainapole of Brunswick Records and the board of directors of Brunswick Records, in which that had did a deal with the New Jersey organized crime family in order to help distribute some of the music of the Shy Lights, Jackie Wilson, and other artists like Barbara Acklin and Louis Armstrong. The New Jersey organized crime mob named the Decalavantes, which was started by Simon Decalavante, nicknamed Sam, of the Decalavante organized crime family of New Jersey, basically began to take over and operate the record company of Brunswick Records. And in their tactics, along with the owner Nathan Trainapole and another guy by the name of Augustus Sims, which was a Chicago African American gangster that they used to be an enforcer to the musicians on Brunswick Records label. Um, Being the Shy Lights, Jackie Wilson, Barbara Acklin, Louis Armstrong, etc., these people were under the enforcement of a guy named Augustus Sims, who worked with the New Jersey organized crime family and also worked with Nathan Trainapole, the owner of Brunswick Records. These allegations led to further investigations, which revealed that Jackie Wilson had been um, threatened to be killed and had been physically assaulted by Nathan Trainapole and the New Jersey organized crime family, and Simon or Decalavante, as well as Augustus Sims, who helped run that record company as far as the enforcement. The enforcement is concerned, causing fear to the artists, etc., and blackmailing. Blackmailing also went on during Brunswick Records heyday in the 70s with the Shy Lights and Jackie Wilson, etc. Payolas was also uh, done. And I'll get into that in the second part of this. It's a long story, the second part of this story. Um, Now, how my dad wind up becoming in the position he was in was due to the fact that in 1981 the Shy Lights had a world tour concert, as I mentioned, with the Jacksons, and they accumulated 25 to 30 million dollars from a worldwide tour concert that went all over the world, from Europe to the United States, outside the United States, Japan, China, all over the world. And 25 to 30 million dollars were accumulated from that concert, from the Shy Lights portion of the concert. My dad took home 3.5 million to roughly $5 million. And due to the investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit, including the U.S. District Attorney at that time, my dad and some of the other Shy Light members decided to put the money, some of the money that they earned from the World Tour concert, into child trust accounts. And the reason why they put them in child trust accounts is because they felt that the IRS would not be able to have access to those child trust accounts due to tax purposes. A lot of times people believe that are, wealthy people, they are talked into creating child trust accounts in order to evade the IRS, uh, and preventing them from being able to have access to the monies that people such as musicians, athletes, actors and movie stars, etc., or people who happen to come into a lot of money, millions of dollars at one time. They try to avoid IRS um, involvement with over accessibility of taxing by sometimes depositing large sums of royalties, or large sums of monies from, be it entertainment, music, concerts, film, movies, television, or whatever they do. The money that they come into, which many times are millions of dollars, they put them in child trust accounts. It's the long secret to people who are very influential, affluential people. They do these things to protect their assets from the IRS, and they are advised to do these things sometimes by attorneys that are shady, who many times they work in actually defrauding the entertainers after they deposit millions of dollars into those trust accounts for their children. A lot of times attorneys that are shady and accountants that are shady that advise them to do these things, later on get access to the trust accounts, and they defraud those accounts from the artists in which they establish the money in there to begin with. A lot of times they are able to, through loopholes, red tape, etc., they're able to hide money. They are able to wire the money sometimes maneuver the money out of the trust accounts of the children of the entertainers or of the family members of the entertainers. And sometimes they'll never see that money again. Sometimes, in this case, it was the Bank of America who had full involvement in the trust accounts that were $3.5 million were deposited in that around 1981. So to make a long story short, my dad became homeless in 1994. And I think NBC, Los Angeles Tribune, LA Times, etc., certain newspapers briefly reported, not in depthly, but briefly reported that being the case with my dad in 1994, while still married to my mother from St. Louis, Missouri. By the way, my mother is from St. Louis, and so is my father. They both are from St. Louis, Missouri. That particular issue occurred after he put the money into the trust accounts. A family feud went on with my aunt Cordell, named Regina Cuby, maiden name Regina Dixon. The feud started after the money was deposited. My aunt went to my mother while in our house in St. Louis, and my father, and asked how were they going to be able to get the money out of the trust accounts that my dad put that money in the Bank of America. And my mother had talked to the CEO of Bank of America and my dad, and found out that the money was deposited into a locked child trust account, primarily because of the fact under me, Darren Cuby, primarily because of the fact that I was only 4.5 to 5 years old. The banker and the lawyer that handled that did not make it known to my mother and father that that money would never be able to be accessed until I was 18 to 21 years old. So my aunt began to panic and told my mother, well, how are we going to get his trust funds out now? My mother said, well, he has to either die of an accidental death, or he has to be declared of a mental incompetency. He has to be declared mentally incompetent. My father at that point was the administrator over all the trust accounts that my dad had established for his children, including myself, my sister Trinell, my sister Tamiko, and some of the half brothers and sisters that you've seen on the fraternity court television show that you've seen on there, that appeared on there with me after I contacted the producer Tyler. Um, so this led to my aunt Regina telling me to go into the bathroom in our house and asked to and said that, well, to my mother, if you don't have the guts to do it, I will. And she said this to my mother and my father right in front of me, and then told me to go in the bathroom, wait for her. So I asked my mom, did she want me to do that? My mom said, fine, go ahead and do that. And so when my aunt came in there, my mother and father followed right behind her, along with my sisters Trinell and Tamiko. My aunt came in the bathroom, and I had my little brown shorts on, my little striped t-shirt, sleeveless t-shirt on, and she picked me up and put me in the tub, turned the water up to the top of the tub, held me down by my shoulders and head until I drowned to death. And I did actually drown to death. I was dead for about 4.5 to 5 minutes before I was resuscitated. So as my mother and father and my two sisters watched her drown me to death while standing in the bathroom doorway, my little sister named Trinell, she tried to stop her, but she was only 5.5 years old. So my aunt slapped her in the face and broke her nose and shoved her straight through the wall and said, you know, this got to be done. My mother was crying while she was doing this. My mother let her do this. My father let her do this, but they both were crying, and my older sister acted like she really didn't care about it anyway. Her name is Tamiko QB. She really didn't care about it. She just wanted to get money herself. And my mother and father came rushing after I was dead, of course. My mother and father came rushing. My father picked me up out of the tub and carried me in the living room and put me on the floor and began to try to use CPR. My mother said, call the ambulance, call the ambulance. So she ran to the phone and called the ambulance. and the ambulance EMT, it was an African American female and a white Caucasian male that came out and resuscitated me. The rest will be back later.